The basement of Chen Industries stayed quiet most nights. Security cameras watched empty hallways while cleaning crews finished their work upstairs. But tonight was different. Elena Rodriguez walked her usual route, flashlight cutting through the darkness. 20 years of security work taught her to trust her gut. Something felt wrong. A soft sound stopped her cold. Whispers. Children's voices echoing from behind the storage room door. Her heart raced. Nobody should be down here, especially not kids. Elena pushed open the door slowly. Her flashlight beam revealed two small boys, huddled together on a makeshift bed of cardboard and old blankets. They looked about 8 years old, identical twins with dark hair and scared eyes. "Please don't call the police," one boy whispered. "We're not stealing anything." The other boy clutched a small, worn photograph against his chest. Elena knelt down, voice gentle. "What are your names? Where are your parents?" "I'm Jake. This is Sam," the first boy said. "Our dad died in the war. Mom is sick in the hospital." Before Elena could respond, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Marcus Chen, the company's CEO, had arrived for his late-night office check. "Elena, what's going on down here?" His voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Marcus stepped into the storage room, expensive suit contrasting sharply with the boy's torn clothes. His expression shifted from confusion to anger. "We have trespassers in our building? This is unacceptable. Call security to remove them immediately." "Sir, they're just children," Elena protested. "I don't care. This is private property." Sam, the quieter twin, looked up at Marcus with tears in his eyes. "We're sorry, mister. We just needed somewhere safe to sleep." He held up the photograph his brother had been protecting. "Our daddy always said to be brave. He was a hero." Marcus glanced at the photo dismissively, then froze. His face went pale. His hands began to shake. The photograph showed a young man in military uniform smiling at the camera, a face Marcus recognized instantly despite the years that had passed. David Kim, his former best friend, the man he had betrayed. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from.
Marcus stared at the photograph, memories flooding back like a broken dam. 20 years melted away in an instant. He was 22 again, sitting in their cramped college apartment with David. Empty pizza boxes covered the desk where they worked on their revolutionary software idea. They called it Connect All, a platform that would change how people shared information online. "We're going to change the world, Marcus," David had said, eyes bright with dreams. "Equal partners, best friends. Nothing can stop us." Marcus had believed it then. Their friendship felt unbreakable. They shared everything: ideas, hopes, fears about the future. David was the creative genius. Marcus handled the business side. Perfect partners. But perfection didn't last. When venture capitalists showed interest, everything changed. Marcus met with investors secretly, presenting the idea as his own creation. He signed contracts behind David's back, cutting his best friend out of their shared dream. "You stole everything from me," David had said during their final confrontation. Pain and betrayal filled his voice. "How could you do this to us?" Marcus had justified it then. Business was business. David was too naive for the corporate world. He would have held them back. "I did what I had to do," Marcus had replied coldly. "You'll thank me someday." But David never got the chance. He left school, disappeared from Marcus's life. Marcus built his empire on their stolen idea, becoming one of the richest men in the city. He never tried to find David, never apologized. Guilt became easier to ignore when buried under success. Now, looking at these two boys, Marcus felt the weight of his choices crushing down on him. "Your father," he whispered, voice barely audible. "His name was David Kim?" Jake nodded eagerly. "Yes! Did you know our daddy?" Marcus couldn't answer. 20 years of suppressed guilt exploded in his chest. He had to steady himself against the wall. Elena watched with growing concern. "Mr. Chen, are you okay?" Marcus struggled to find words. I knew your father. A long time ago. Sam's eyes lit up. Really? What was he like? How could Marcus explain? How could he tell these innocent children that their hero father had been betrayed by the very man standing before them? He was a good man, Marcus managed. Very good. The boys smiled, hungry for any connection to their lost father. Marcus felt sick. Our mom tells us stories about Daddy, Jake said. He was brave in the war. He saved lots of people before he died. Marcus closed his eyes. While he had been building his fortune, David had been serving his country. While Marcus lived in luxury, David had been sacrificing for others. "Why are you boys here?" Marcus asked gently. "Where is your mother?" "Mom got sick, really sick. She's in the hospital, but we can't afford to stay there with her. The bills are too much. We've been living in different places, sometimes shelters, sometimes on the streets, but this basement felt safe." Elena's heart broke listening to them. "How long have you been down here?" 3 days, Jake said. "We found a way in through the loading dock. We're quiet. We don't bother anyone." Marcus looked around the makeshift shelter. These children had been living on cardboard and scraps while he slept in his mansion. David's children, his best friend's boys. "You can't stay here," Marcus said, but his voice lacked its earlier harshness. Fear flashed across both boys' faces. "Please, mister," Sam begged. "We have nowhere else to go." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. These weren't just homeless children. They were David's sons. They carried his blood, his legacy, and they were suffering because of choices Marcus had made decades ago. Marcus struggled with words he hadn't said in years. You can't stay here because it's not safe, not because I'm throwing you out." The boys looked confused. "What I'm saying is, you're coming home with me, tonight." Elena's eyes widened in surprise. In 20 years of working for Marcus, she had never seen him show compassion to strangers. "Really?" Jake asked hopefully. Marcus nodded. "Decision made. Really. We'll figure out how to help your mother too." As they gathered the boys' few belongings, Marcus caught Elena's questioning look. "Sir, are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. Marcus looked at the photograph still clutched in Sam's hand. David's face smiled back at him, full of the hope and trust that Marcus had destroyed. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," he said. But even as he spoke the words, Marcus knew that bringing these boys home was just the beginning. The real challenge would be facing the truth about what he had done to their father, and finding a way to make amends for a betrayal that had shaped 20 years of his life. The ghost of David Kim had returned, carried in the faces of 2 innocent boys who still believed their father's best friend could be trusted. Marcus wasn't sure he deserved their trust, but he was determined to earn it, no matter what it cost him.
Marcus's mansion felt different with children inside. The echoing marble halls that once symbolized his success now seemed cold and empty. Jake and Sam moved through the space with wide eyes, clearly overwhelmed by the luxury. "You live here all by yourself?" Jake asked, staring at the crystal chandelier in the foyer. "Yes," Marcus replied, realizing how hollow that sounded. It's too big for one person." Maria, his housekeeper, appeared with warm smiles and hot chocolate. She had raised 3 children of her own and immediately took the boys under her wing. "They need clothes, food, and lots of love," she whispered to Marcus in Spanish. "When did you become an uncle?" Marcus couldn't explain the truth. Not yet. That night, after the boys were asleep in the guest room, Marcus sat alone in his study. David's military records lay spread across his desk. Elena had helped him access public information about his former friend's service. Staff Sergeant David Kim had served 3 tours in Afghanistan. His unit called him Guardian Angel because he always volunteered for the most dangerous missions to protect younger soldiers. He had saved 17 lives before an improvised explosive device claimed his own. Marcus read testimonials from soldiers David had rescued. They called him selfless, brave, the kind of leader who put others first. Everything Marcus had once been but had chosen to abandon. The irony cut deep. While Marcus had betrayed their friendship for money, David had spent his life serving others. The boy who had been too naive for business had become a war hero.
The next morning brought new challenges. Marcus tried to visit Sarah Kim at the hospital, but she was sedated after a difficult night. The boy's mother was fighting stage 3 cancer, and the medical bills were staggering. "I can pay for everything," Marcus told the social worker assigned to the case. "Private room, best doctors, whatever she needs." The social worker, Janet Mills, looked skeptical. "Mr. Chen, while your generosity is admirable, I have to ask, what's your relationship to this family?" I was David's friend. From college." "I see. And you just now discovered his children were homeless?" The question stung because it was fair. If Marcus had truly been David's friend, he would have known about the family's struggles. "It's complicated," Marcus said lamely. Back at the mansion, the boys were adapting to their new temporary home. They helped Maria in the kitchen, played in the enormous backyard, and slowly began to trust that this wasn't another temporary stop. But Marcus faced growing pressure from his corporate board. Word had spread about the charity case living in their CEO's home. "This is affecting our image," board member Richard Walsh complained during their weekly meeting. "Investors are asking questions. Why are you personally involved with homeless children?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Marcus replied. "The right thing for business is maintaining professional boundaries," Walsh shot back. "You're not a social worker, Marcus. You're a CEO." Other board members nodded in agreement. Marcus felt the familiar pressure to choose profit over principle. It was the same choice he had made 20 years ago with David. Meanwhile, the boys began sharing more stories about their father. They had no idea about the betrayal, only knew that their dad had spoken fondly of his college friend Marcus. "Daddy used to say you were the smartest person he ever met," Sam told Marcus one evening. "He said you could solve any problem." The innocence in the boy's voice made Marcus's stomach turn. David had never told his children about the betrayal. Even after everything, he had protected Marcus's reputation. "He said that?" Marcus asked quietly. "All the time," Jake added. "He said you taught him about business and computers. He was proud to know you." Marcus excused himself and went to his study, where he broke down crying for the first time in 20 years. David had every right to poison his children against the man who had stolen from him. Instead, he had chosen forgiveness and respect. The situation grew more complex when Sarah Kim woke up and refused Marcus's financial help. "I don't need charity," she said weakly from her hospital bed. "My boys and I can take care of ourselves." "Mrs. Kim, please," Marcus begged. "Let me help. I have the resources." "Why?" Sarah's eyes were sharp despite her illness. "You say you knew David, but he never mentioned you visiting or calling after college. Where were you when he was struggling to find work? Where were you when he enlisted because he couldn't afford to finish school?" "I made mistakes," Marcus admitted. "I want to make things right." "The boys like you," Sarah said after a long pause. "They feel safe with you. That's worth something, but I won't take handouts." She agreed to let the boy stay with Marcus temporarily, only if he treated it as a business arrangement. She would pay him back somehow, someday. Marcus agreed, knowing full well he would never accept payment. But Sarah's pride reminded Marcus's integrity. Even facing death, she maintained her dignity. The boys' situation remained precarious. Child services wanted to place them in foster care while their mother recovered. Since Marcus wasn't family, he had no legal right to keep them. "They could be separated," Janet Mills explained. "Finding families willing to take twins is difficult." The thought of splitting Jake and Sam apart terrified Marcus. These boys had already lost their father and were facing the loss of their mother. He couldn't let them lose each other too. "What if I applied to become their temporary guardian?" Marcus asked. "That's a lengthy process. Background checks, home studies, interviews. It could take months." Marcus didn't have months. Sarah's condition was deteriorating, and the boys needed stability now.
That night, he made a decision that would change everything. He called his lawyer and began the process of restructuring his entire life. If he was going to honor David's memory, he needed to do more than write checks. He needed to become the man David had always believed he could be. But first, he had to face the hardest part of all, telling the boys the truth about their father and the man who had betrayed him. The weight of 20 years of guilt pressed down on Marcus as he watched Jake and Sam sleep peacefully in their beds. They trusted him completely, just as David once had. Marcus had broken that trust before and built an empire on the wreckage of it. Now he faced a choice that would define the rest of his life. Would he protect his reputation and send these boys away, or would he risk everything to make amends for the betrayal that had haunted him for 20 years? The answer would determine not just the boys' future, but the fate of Marcus's soul.
At 3 a.m, Marcus's phone rang. The sound cut through the silence of his mansion like a blade. "Mr. Chen?" The voice belonged to Dr. Martinez from the hospital. "Sarah Kim has taken a turn for the worse. She's asking for you." Marcus's blood ran cold. He looked toward the guest room where Jake and Sam slept peacefully, unaware that their world was about to shatter again. "I'll be right there," he whispered. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Marcus's mind raced with possibilities, all of them terrible. What would happen to the boys if Sarah died? How could he explain to them that their mother was gone? At the hospital, Dr. Martinez met him in the hallway. "She's stable for now, but it's serious. She wanted to speak with you privately before we call the boys." Sarah Kim looked fragile in the hospital bed, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "Marcus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something about David." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Mrs. Kim, you should rest." "No." Sarah struggled to sit up. "I know what you did." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You know?" "David told me everything. About the company, the betrayal, how you stole his ideas and pushed him out." Sarah's voice grew stronger with each word. "He was devastated. It nearly broke him." Marcus felt 20 years of guilt crash over him like a tidal wave. "I'm so sorry. I was young and stupid and selfish. I've regretted it every day since." "Have you?" Sarah's eyes were sharp. "Because you built an empire on what you stole from him. You became rich and famous while he struggled to find work, while he enlisted because he couldn't afford to finish school, while he died serving a country that you prospered in." Each word was a dagger to Marcus's heart. "You're right. I have no excuse. I destroyed our friendship for money." Sarah studied his face in the dim hospital light. "David never stopped talking about you. Even after what you did, he believed you were capable of being better." "I don't understand." "He said you had lost your way, but that the Marcus he knew in college was still in there somewhere. He said you just needed to remember who you really were." Marcus began to cry. How could he forgive me? How could he still believe in me after what I did? Because that's who David was. He saw the best in everyone, even when they couldn't see it themselves. Sarah's voice grew weaker. "He made me promise something before he left for his final deployment." "What?" "He said, if anything happened to him, and if you ever came back into our lives, I should give you a chance to make things right. He believed you would, eventually." He reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. "He wrote this for you before his last mission. He asked me to give it to you if we ever met." Marcus's hands shook as he took the envelope. His name was written on the front in David's familiar handwriting. "Read it," Sarah whispered. "Then tell me what you're going to do about my boys." Marcus opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in David's neat script. "Marcus,
If you're reading this, then something has happened to me, and Sarah has kept my promise to give you this letter. I hope you're well. I hope you found the success you were looking for. I won't lie. What you did to me hurt. It hurt for a long time, but I've had years to think about it, and I understand now. We were kids, scared of failure, desperate to prove ourselves. You made a choice that seemed right at the time, even if it was wrong. I forgive you, Marcus. I forgave you years ago. I know you probably think I hate you, but I don't. I remember the boy who stayed up all night helping me with coding problems. I remembered the friend who believed in our dreams when nobody else did. I remember the person you were before fear made you forget who you wanted to be. If you're reading this, then my boys need help. They're everything good about this world, Marcus. They're the future I was fighting for. Please don't let them suffer because of mistakes we made 20 years ago. I believe in you. I always have. Now I need you to believe in yourself and be the man I know you can be. Your friend always, David. Marcus's vision blurred as tears fell onto the paper. David had known. He had known about the betrayal, had lived with the pain of it, and still chosen forgiveness over hatred. He was a better man than I ever was. Yes, Sarah agreed, but he believed you could be better too. The question is, do you believe it? Marcus looked at Sarah, this dying woman who had every right to hate him, but was offering him a chance at redemption. What do you want me to do? I want you to make a choice. Not the choice you made 20 years ago, but the choice David would have made. Put my boys first. Put their needs above your own comfort, your reputation, your business concerns. Be the man who deserves their trust. I will, Marcus said immediately. I'll adopt them. I'll give them everything they need. That's not enough, Sarah said sharply. They don't need your money. They need your heart. They need you to be present, to be real, to be the father figure they deserve. Can you do that? Marcus thought about his empty mansion, his cold boardroom, his life built on betrayal and selfishness. Then he thought about Jake and Sam, sleeping peacefully because they trusted him to keep them safe. I can try. Trying isn't enough, Sarah said. These boys have been through hell. They need certainty. They need someone who will choose them over everything else, every time. Are you that person? Marcus felt the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. Choosing the boys meant giving up the life he had built. It meant facing the truth about his past, accepting the consequences of his actions, and rebuilding himself from the ground up. It would become the man David had always believed he could be. Yes, Marcus said, his voice steady for the first time in 20 years. I am that person. Sarah smiled weakly. Then I have one more thing to ask of you. Anything. Tell them the truth about their father and about you. They deserve to know who their hero really was, and they deserve to know that even good people make mistakes and find ways to make them right. I will. Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of what she was asking. I will. I promise. Good. Then I can rest knowing they'll be okay. As Marcus sat beside Sarah's bed, holding David's letter in his hands, he felt something shift inside him. The fear and shame that had driven him for 20 years began to dissolve, replaced by something he hadn't felt in decades. Purpose. Real purpose. He had spent 20 years building an empire on stolen dreams. Now, he would spend the rest of his life honoring the memory of the friend he had betrayed and raising the children that friend had left behind. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be comfortable, but it would be right. For the first time in 20 years, Marcus Chen was ready to be the man he was meant to be.
Sarah Kim died peacefully 3 days later, surrounded by love. Marcus held the boys as they cried. their small bodies shaking with grief that seemed too big for their young hearts. "She's with Daddy now," Jake whispered through his tears. "Yes," Marcus said, his own voice breaking. "She's with him." The funeral was small but meaningful. Marcus paid for everything, despite knowing Sarah would have protested. David's military unit sent representatives who shared stories of his courage and sacrifice. The boys listened with pride and pain, learning new details about their father's heroism. After the service, Marcus faced his hardest task yet. He had promised Sarah he would tell the boys the truth about their father and himself. That evening he sat with Jake and Sam in his study, David's litter on the desk between them. "Boys, I need to tell you something important about your father and me." They looked at him with trusting eyes, and Marcus felt the weight of his responsibility. "A long time ago, your dad and I were best friends. We went to college together and started a company together. We had big dreams about changing the world." "Like superheroes?" Sam asked. "Sort of," Marcus smiled sadly, "but I made a terrible mistake. I was scared and selfish, and I betrayed your father's trust. I stole our ideas and pushed him out of the company we built together." The boys looked confused. "You were mean to our daddy?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "I hurt him very badly. I broke our friendship because I thought money was more important than loyalty." Jake's eyes filled with tears. "But Daddy always said nice things about you." "I know. And that's what made your father so special. Even though I hurt him, he chose to forgive me. He chose to remember the good times instead of the bad ones." Marcus showed them David's letter, reading the parts that were appropriate for their age. "Your father was a much better man than I was. He served his country, he saved lives, and he raised two incredible boys. He died a hero." "Are you a bad man?" Sam asked quietly. Marcus considered the question carefully. "I did bad things. I made choices that hurt people I cared about. But your father believed I could be better, and your mother gave me a chance to prove it." "Will you hurt us too?" Jake asked, fear creeping into his voice. "No," Marcus said firmly. "I promise you I will never hurt you. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your trust and your father's forgiveness." The boys sat quietly, processing this new information. Finally, Sam spoke up. "Our daddy was smart. If he believed you could be good, then we believe it too." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. "I love you both. I will take care of you forever." "We love you too," Jake said, climbing into Marcus's lap. "Can we still call you Uncle Marcus?" "You can call me whatever feels right to you," Marcus said, holding them close. The path forward wasn't easy. Marcus faced fierce opposition from his board of directors when he announced his intention to step down as CEO to focus on raising the boys. "You're destroying everything we've built," Richard Walsh argued during a heated board meeting. "This company is your legacy." "No," Marcus replied calmly. "This company is built on stolen ideas and broken promises. My real legacy will be raising David's boys and honoring his memory." Marcus restructured his entire life. He sold most of his assets and established the David Kim Foundation, dedicated to supporting military families and children who had lost parents in service. The foundation's first major initiative was a partnership with local schools to provide free after-school programs for at-risk youth. Marcus worked directly with the programs, using his business skills to help other people's children instead of just accumulating wealth. The boys thrived in their new environment. Marcus enrolled them in a good school where they made friends and excelled academically. He attended every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every soccer game. "You're different now," Maria the housekeeper observed one day as she watched Marcus help the boys with their homework. "Happier. I'm finally living for something bigger than myself," Marcus replied. The transformation wasn't just personal. Marcus began reaching out to other people he had wronged during his climb to success.
He made amends where possible, offering genuine apologies and concrete actions to repair the damage he had caused. Some people rejected his attempts at reconciliation. Others were skeptical of his motives. But Marcus persisted, understanding that redemption was a process, not a destination. The boys began to heal from their losses. They still missed their parents terribly, but they found stability and love in their new home. Marcus made sure they had counseling to help them process their grief and trauma. "Uncle Marcus," Jake said one day, "do you think our daddy would be proud of us?" "I know he would. He would be proud of how brave you've been, how kind you are to others, and how much you've grown." "What about you?" Sam asked. "Do you think he'd be proud of you?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I think he'd be proud that I'm trying to be better. That's all any of us can do. Try to be better today than we were yesterday." The foundation grew rapidly, funded by Marcus's personal fortune and supported by donations from people inspired by David's story. They opened centers in 3 cities, providing services to hundreds of military families. Marcus hired Elena Rodriguez as the foundation's director of operations. Her experience in security and her natural compassion made her perfect for the role. "Who would have thought that finding 2 boys in a basement would change so many lives?" Elena reflected during one of their planning meetings. "David would have," Marcus said. He always believed in the power of second chances. The boys grew stronger and more confident each day. They made friends, played sports, and began to dream about their own futures. Jake wanted to be a teacher, Sam wanted to be a doctor like the ones that had tried to help their mother. "We want to help people just like Daddy did, just like you do," Sam added, looking at Marcus with admiration. Marcus felt a pride he had never experienced in his corporate achievements. This was real success, not the accumulation of wealth, but the investment in human lives and potential. One evening, as Marcus tucked the boys into bed, Sam asked him a question that stopped him cold. "Uncle Marcus, do you think we can visit Daddy and Mommy someday?" Marcus understood he was asking about death, about the afterlife, about whether they would see their parents again. It was a question that required wisdom and hope. "I don't know exactly what happens after we die, but I believe love doesn't end. I believe your parents are still with you in here," he touched Sam's chest, "and here," he touched his head. "And I believe that as long as we remember them and try to live the way they would want us to, they're never really gone." "Will you remember them too?" Jake asked. "Every day," Marcus promised. "Your father taught me the most important lesson of my life, that it's never too late to choose love over fear, forgiveness over revenge, and service over selfishness." As the boys drifted off to sleep, Marcus sat in his study looking at the photo that had started it all. David's face smiled back at him, no longer a reminder of shame, but a symbol of hope. The foundation had already helped over 1,000 families. The boys were healthy, happy, and surrounded by love. Marcus had found purpose beyond profit and peace beyond success. But the real victory wasn't measured in numbers or achievements. It was measured in the trust of 2 boys who had chosen to believe in him, just as their father had. Marcus finally understood what David had meant in his letter. Redemption wasn't about erasing the past, it was about building a future that honored it.